Welcome to Immigration Quicktake. This is Ellie Rutledge Silver at the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Congress has announced a fiscal year 2017 appropriations bill that will be passed by tomorrow. And here to share what this means for immigration policy is Chen, Director of Government Relations at AILA. Greg, thanks for joining me. What is in this bill?
So the bill appropriates $42 billion for the Department of Homeland Security for the fiscal year 2017. That's what ends on September 30th. And that's an extra $1.45 billion in comparison to last year's spending levels. There's no money in there for the border wall the president wanted, but there is $770 million extra dollars in there for CBP. Now, a good chunk of that is going to be for 40 miles worth of conversion of fencing to pedestrian fencing, and also fixing or replacing fencing that needs to have those fixes done. In addition, even though there's not supposed to be any new money to hire more agents, there is $65 million in there to allow for CBP to facilitate its hiring processes, things like relocation costs. On the interior, the main thing is going to be detention, and here we are looking at almost $400 million more for detention funding on top of last year's spending levels. In addition, one thing that is not included that's important is that there's no bed mandate. There's no quota set for the number of beds that has to be maintained by ICE, and that's basically good news. Two other important points: there's no sanctuary cities provision in there. That was something that the White House had been saying that it was going to push for, that was going to be a poison pill rider. That's not in there. There is funding in there for 10 additional immigration judge teams to be hired. An additional item on the courts is that in the House report language, it's not actually part of the bill text, but there is language in there that calls upon EOR to reduce the actual processing times for cases. So for detained cases, the median processing times is supposed to come down to 60 days. And for non-detained cases, it's supposed to come down to 1 year. And for all of you who know how courts work, that's going to be a ridiculous level to try to achieve.
Thanks, Greg. What is AILA's analysis?
So, of course, the big news is that there is no money for the president's border wall that he had made such a big deal out of. And the fact that that was rejected is a good sign that overall Congress is rejecting these kinds of big campaign promises that are really wasteful, unnecessary, and totally ineffective, as AILA highlighted in our action alerts that we pushed to Congress. But the overall bill really is a compromise, and it's going to be a painful compromise for our clients, for immigrant communities across the board, mainly because there's just so much more money in there for immigration enforcement. The detention aspects are going to increase capacity for detention, and an important point to note is that border apprehensions are way, way down. We're talking about a 75% decrease in apprehension levels from October of last year through March. It's been a precipitous drop, and because of that, there's just so much less reason, any justification, to detain more people, and yet there's more money in there for detention. So what does this translate to? It translates to ICE, CBP being able to apprehend more people and detain them while they are waiting for deportation. It just means that more people are going to be deported. These are the families. These are the people that have lived here a long time, that have ties to the United States, that we are talking about that are really going to be targeted. The president's been saying that he is targeting people who are criminals, who are dangerous to the United States, gangs coming across the borders. But that's just really not true at all. The Washington Post reported a couple of weeks ago that the early data in the first 2 months of the administration shows that, in fact, the major increase in apprehensions under this administration are from non-criminals, people who are not dangerous at all. So that really belies the issue of what the president and this administration is targeting, and our real concern is going to be the impact on our communities.
Where does the returning worker exemption stand for H-2Bs?
So AILA supports the H-2B returning worker exemption, which exempts a worker from the H-2B cap if he or she has received an H-2B visa during the past 3 years. Unfortunately, that exemption did not get it into this bill. However, the bill does include a provision that enables DHS or the Department of Labor to raise the H-2B cap if, and only if, the two agencies agree that the existing positions cannot be filled by U.S. workers. AILA supports that provision, and we're glad it's been included.
Thanks, Craig, for joining me. For the rest of you, please stay tuned for updates from the American Immigration Lawyers Association.